Welcome to week 7's editing video. This week's homework was apertures, long apertures, deep apertures and shallow depth of field. So long depth of field and shallow depth of field. I'll just start up Picasa here and get straight into it. So looking at Sarah's homework, Sarah's images are unfortunately a tad small, so I need to work with Sarah on trying to figure out how to get them larger. So what I've done here is just increase the size of it. The quality isn't optimal, but it'll work for the for this particular video, so you can see what I'm doing. So here we are. This is a row of one of her many, or some of her many nail polishers. I really like the idea of lining these up like this. I think the colour isn't quite right in them, so I'm going to try I'm Feeling Lucky, and as you can see that's made a big difference. These are a lot whiter now, so if I undo that and then redo the I'm Feeling Lucky, it's a lot better. It looks a bit dull, so I'm going to increase the, ooh, not too much. Ooh, what happened there? I'm Feeling Lucky. So if we increase the fill light a little bit, we can brighten them up a little bit. And also I'm going to increase the saturation. These colours need to pop out a little bit more. So we go to the third tab along, click on saturation, and that's made a big difference. Yeah, I like that. Okay, and finally I'm going to crop the image. Although this is a really nice lineup, we've got this part is cropped here, and to give it an infinite feel, I think that a little bit of cropping on this end, on the left hand end, and maybe on the right hand end as well, would help it, so it's almost like it's a whole line. So click on crop. This is going to be a bit trickier because it's decreased the size of the image. What I think I'm going to do is take it from about there to about there. And what that's now giving us is more of an infinite feel to the line of nail varnish bottles. Okay, I think that one works really nicely now. Looking at this one, they're going to apply the same edits to this. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So going to I'm Feeling Lucky. We've really sorted out the colours there. It's now a lot more vibrant. Add a little bit of fill light, and also I think we'll increase the saturation a little bit as well, just a tiny bit. So if I cancel that, it just bumps up the reds here a little bit as well as some of the other colours. I really like this. This is really good. Apply changes. So go to the next one. That's the same. I'm not going to re-edit that because although one of the things that we could do is edit this. So again, if we crop it on the left hand side, give it more of an infinite feel to it. So let's go back to the first tab. So we'll do I'm Feeling Lucky, add a little bit of fill light, click on saturation just to make it pop a little bit more, apply that, go back to the first tab and crop. I'm going to crop to about here. Maybe pull that in slightly. And then increase it. So it's almost like you're trying to create an infinite feel, so that there isn't an end to the line of nail varnish bottles. okay. The next one, same thing again, the same edits. I'm feeling lucky. Add some fill light, a bit more fill light this time. Add a little bit of saturation, make those colours pop a little bit, apply that. And again, what I'm going to do is crop, so we're going to get rid of this darker area here, and also I'm going to crop about there to give it more of an infinite feel. So I'm feeling, oh, I don't want to do that again. Oops, let's do crop. So if we crop out there, and there we go. I think that looks a lot better now. Oh, I said I was going to crop it at the top as well a little bit. So if we recrop this and pull this top line down still a little bit, maybe over to the side. Let's get rid of that dark area. Crop. So there we go. I think that's a much improved image now. This was quite an interesting image. I like the idea of the line again. I think having this as an infinite line again would work really well. If we just pull it up to 100%, you can see that there's an edge here where there's a darker area. I do like all these these lines of light that are shining through. So I think what we'll do is first we'll do I'm feeling lucky. Add a little bit of fill light. And then we're going to do a crop. Oops. I'm going to crop from about here. So then there we go. I think that works really, really well now. I think all these images that Saira has shown us, or sent in, have been really strong and really demonstrated a knowledge of shallow and deep depths of field. So the next one she sent was this hairpiece. Okay, if we increase the size of it, we've got a black area here on this left hand side, so I'm just going to crop it to get rid of that. I'm also going to crop it at the bottom so that these two parts of the headpiece are then on a third. Increase the size of it. I'm feeling lucky. That's made an interesting change. This would be down to taste at the end of the day. I'm liking the contrast of the gold and the sort of bluey green that we have, or bluey greeny grey that we've got going around in the background. But that would be down to the individual. An alternative would be just to, oops, whoa, what's happened there? So if we just, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Oops, undo fill light, just increase it a little bit. There we go. Maybe, I'm not sure why it keeps increasing like this. If we can do that. There we go, I think that's about right. The next one, again, I'm liking the use of the shallow depth of field here. With this particular image, your eye is concentrated on this star, so the background isn't as relevant. With the next image, you have, again, I think I would crop this just to put this almost on a third. I need to move that back a little bit. Yeah, I think that works really well. So increase the size of that. Maybe just increase the. Why does it do that? I've no idea why it's doing this. It may be because of the size of these images. It's just struggling. There we go. And I may add some contrast into that as well. The contrast has really given us a lot of definition here now as well in the background. Again, it would be individual taste as to whether you use the I'm feeling lucky, which gives us this sort of bluey green colour, or whether you just increase the fill light on this and added some contrast some detail. Those are really good. Very pleased with those. Paris has produced 3 images which need very little editing at all. I might be tempted to crop to get rid of this little bit down here, this light area. In fact, we could try that. If we crop that maybe to there. Yeah, I think that works much better, having got rid of that light area. All 3 of these images are absolutely fabulous. Nothing to suggest there. And this was fascinating, looking at the inside of a toaster. Your eye is drawn to this area here, this triangle of white, so it would be maybe useful to either crop this out. Let's see if we crop. I think cropping is the wrong thing to do. I think to reshoot it with a darker background there would be better. As you can see, that's your eyes are now concentrated on this main area, whereas if we undo the crop, this white area is where your eyes are constantly drawn. Still a fascinating image and a great use of depth of field. So on to Camille's photos. I love this. I love these masks. I think the I'm Feeling Lucky has worked perfectly here, just to add some contrast. It's added some light and adjusted the colours slightly as well. I have a thing about masks, so it does fascinate me quite a lot. Again, I'm liking the shallow depth of field that you've got going on here. The same with this. I'm liking the fact you've also got your own work on the wall here. I'm Feeling Lucky. That made very little difference at all. Made a little bit, added some contrast to the image. But we have the edge of the wall here, and I'd be tempted to crop this. So if we start in the top right left hand corner, bring this down. What I would suggest is that you have the same source, about the same distance between the edge of the photograph here and the edge of the image on both, and have that pretty even on both sides. We just need to move that slightly, and that's got rid of the where the 2 walls joined. Finally, there was the photograph of the hamster. Again, I would be tempted to crop this a little bit, just over on the left hand side. I think that works much better as an image. I'm Feeling Lucky. It's given it a much better colour cast here now as well. The colours in the image are much closer to real life. These are fabulous images, really like these, and really interested in these masks as well. So Lawrence's photographs are very good as well. Here we have some daffodils outside Salford Lads Club. I really like this. I thought this was a really fun idea. All these are showing the shallow depth of field, deep depth of field, shallow depth of field, deep depth of field, shallow depth of field, deep depth of field. This one I think is the most interesting one, because your eyes are concentrated on the cat here in the foreground, because everything in the background is blurred a little bit. So it's a shallow depth of field. Here, being a deep depth of field, everything in focus, the cat is lost a little bit. So this makes it quite an interesting image. The only thing I think I might do with this is that this feels a little bit blue. I think this should be more of a black colour. So if I'm Feeling Lucky, it's darkened it a little bit, but it hasn't really done much with the colour temperature. So if we go to the second tab along and just move the colour temperature and warm it a little bit, what we've done is got rid of that blue. Just warm it a little bit. There we go. So what I'm looking at is these bricks. I wanted to make these bricks a little bit warmer. And the same with this one. I think it just needed a touch, not a huge amount. Fabulous. And again, Lawrence had already tried adding the colour temperature to this image, so this is how it was shot. A little bit on the blue side, and adding some warmth to it makes it look a little more normal in terms of how your eyes would see it. So that's adding colour temperature, moving the colour temperature to the right. Okay. There was nothing I would suggest doing to these. I think these look fine. I also like the way the double yellow lines have anchored this image in the corner, and it's leading directly to the cat's arm here as well. You've also got a rule of thirds. The bridge here is on a third. The end of the road is on a third as well. So it's a very strong image. Chris presented quite an interesting selection of images. This one was overexposed. Now we've got all the information over on the right hand side here from the properties. Down on the bottom right there is an eye symbol, and if you click on that it will bring up all the properties relating to the actual photograph. And what we're seeing here is that the ISO is set to 400. The f number, the aperture, is 2.5, so it's got a shallow depth of field, and the exposure is 1/125th of a second. But it's still overexposed. The ISO really needs to come down to about 100 here, because it looks like it's in good daylight. And 125th of a second, that's a reasonable shutter speed. But if she was trying to do a shallow depth of field, then the ISO would need to come down and the exposure would need to increase. What we'll do is talk about this a little more next week. I love this. I love the crop on it. I like the way that we've lost most of the eggs in these two images, and I think this also relates back to Sarah's images of her bottles of nail polish, in that you don't have to have all of every bottle in the image, because you know that these are eggs because this one's in. You don't have to have all of the other two. I also like the texture of this. I'm liking the positioning of these as well. I think it works very strongly as an image. An egg, nothing more you can say about this. I like the bluey grey in the background. I think it needs a bit of a lift though. It looked alright on the screen last night, but I'm thinking what would happen oh, that's made it a little bit darker and the eye I'm feeling lucky. But if I move the fill light over, it's pulled it up quite substantially. And I think that looks much better now. This was fascinating and provoked a lot of debate. This is a heart-shaped box of chocolates with all the chocolates taken out of them, and I was thinking at the time that this would be interesting to have an egg yolk in every one of these holes, because these are actually little plastic holders, so the egg wouldn't drop down into the container. And I'm liking the two white eggs here, and it's almost like you have one of these happy faces, or a face in an unusual place. The colours on this are very good as well, very nicely saturated image. An abstract, I think this is superb. There's nothing I really want to say about this one. I'm liking the square crop. I'm liking the square crop on many of these. I like this row of eggs which have got this blue hue to them. The red in the base has worked really well. I think this was a piece of card that had been added at the base and become reflected across the image, across the inside of the vase. So it's worked very well. Again, we had a little bit of a debate about this. Looking at it now, I think it's a bit dark and needs a little bit of fill light to pull it up. There we go. So if I undo the fill light and then redo the fill light, you can can see how much it's lifted as an image. I love this guy in the doorway, as I mentioned last night, but I think this isn't really working, this guy with his back to us. If he was walking towards us, I think this would make it a much stronger image. Again, a great set of images from Chris. So onto Donna's images. I'm just going to work on one image because all of the others oranges images all are very similar. So if I bring this one up, I think on this one it needs the cropping slightly to get rid of this edge. We've got a bit of an edge at the background, so let's crop it first of all. I'm more tempted to keep this rather than cropping the edge of one off here. I'm actually going to recrop this to do something else that I said earlier. I think it was with Camille's images. There we go. What I've done here is have the edge here to be the same as the edge here, but I think it would work equally well if I was to pull this edge even further, so that we're almost cropping into the end orange over here. I think that works really nicely. There's a lot of orange in this image though, a lot of orange. So what I might be tempted to do is play around with the colour temperature, but before I do that I'm going to click on I'm Feeling Lucky. So I think that's a little more like how it should be. These oranges are looking very tempting. So if I go back, I'm going to undo that I'm Feeling Lucky and just play around with the colour temperature first of all. And we're getting a very similar effect. I think that's a lot closer now to how it should be. I think we'll add a little bit of fill light to this, and also middle tab, bits of saturation. Maybe a little too much. So just want a touch of saturation to the image, and I think that works a lot better now, as I think it was just too orange before. Love these. Again, two very similar images. I'm going to work on this one because they are so similar. The detail in this is fantastic, and the texture, you can almost touch it and know what it's going to feel like. Again, I might be tempted to crop this particular image, so far left hand tab, crop, and I think we'll do what I did before, which is a crop like this, and pull that in slightly. That's superb. Add a little bit of fill light, or should we go for I'm Feeling Lucky? I think the I'm Feeling Lucky works great here. The background in this case has worked superbly with the different colours that we've got going on here. The I'm Feeling Lucky is all we need in this case. I've just noticed there's a little tiny bit of white up on the right hand side, so if I recrop this, just pull it in slightly. There we go. I think that is a superb image now. Absolutely superb. So the same, I do something very similar with this one. Crop to get rid of that, crop to maybe crop here, or might even crop it to this edge here, and again with playing around with the I'm Feeling Lucky, etc. And that's it. That's the end of the edits of these images. As I said, Syra's images seem to be very small, so what I'm going to do is get in touch with her to see if we can resolve why they are so small, and I shall leave it at that with you. If you have any questions regarding this video, please drop me a line. You've got my email address, or make some comments on the video here. Otherwise, there'll be another video next week with more editing.